Boulevard?
On East Grand.
On East Grand.
We are on East Grand.
Wait, what's this?
Our office, right next door to the Packard plant.
Yeah.
What?
The Motor One office and headquarters.
I didn't know you. Oh, that's right. Chris told me you were going to move over there, but I didn't know you guys had moved over there.
Yeah, so there's a warehouse logistics company right next door to the Packard plant on East Grand, a couple of offices in there, and so we have an office on the 3rd floor and a studio space on the 2nd floor.
Nice.
Studio, though, not like this, an empty room with a couple of lights in it, but...
kind of all you need, but...
Yeah.
Is the area, have you noticed a difference since you guys have moved in, or is it?
Yeah, there's more people scared to go there now that they're there.
Have you gentrified the place by your
We're working
presence?
on it. I'm working on getting a Starbucks there.
Have you? Yeah, I'm sorry.
Well, so there's a company in our office, Arte Design, and they are working on renovating part of the Packard plant, turning it into some office space.
That's
They
what I was gonna
claim they
ask
have tenants lined up.
Is that the Peruvian guy's company?
Yes.
Yeah.
Is there
His
actually
name
something?
escapes me.
Is there actually something happening?
They have cut down a bunch of weeds and trees, and they are ostensibly rehabbing one building.
Are these weeds and trees like coming up through what used to be a floor?
It's a huge building, right? There's so much building, and so much of it looks to me like it's not salvageable.
Well,
The whole exterior walls are gone.
If you guys ever get out to the
These
Baltimore
big
area,
efforts there.
Yeah.
if you ever get out to the Baltimore area, do you remember when the Fiat 500L was introduced a few years ago? They did the drive in Baltimore, of all things, and one of the places that we had a lunch was one of the old factory complexes. Because remember, Baltimore used to be very heavy in textile and milling and the like. And we spent some time in this one area. As a matter of fact, I drove with Chris, so he has some photos he can probably show you. I know we took a lot of shots there in one particular section. And there were buildings that were, in many cases, even worse off than the Packard plant. They were literally just piles of rubble. And they've been renovating various, along the river, various ones. And so that to me is like the archetypal example of what they could do with the Packard plant. It's really cool.
I'd love to see it all get renovated as well. I really would.
So would I.
Because in that neighborhood at the moment, there's not a lot. There are gas stations at Coney Island, and not a lot of houses.
There's a Coney there?
Yeah, Legends Coney. I've never even been in. I haven't. No, and I should. I know. It's called Legends Coney Island, right on.
You guys have secure parking?
Yeah, there's a gate for the parking lots because the shipping company leaves trucks there, and the DMC even parks ambulances there. They have an ambulance
And you've had no
running
trouble?
out of knock on wood, we've been good in terms of cars down there.
Yeah. I'd love to see that come back.
Yeah, me too.
To me, there are two symbols of the city. Actually, there's three that really would tell me that the city, there was something explosively energetic in the city. The Hudson's, which is now committed. Mm-hmm. The train station, which you're starting to get hints that it's more than just putting those windows in, that there's really something going on in the Packard plant. Those three things would tell you that this is unstoppable.
Okay. I want to thank everybody who's already tuned in live. We got a great show coming up. This is going to be sort of a free-for-all, talking about all kinds of things going on in the industry. So if you've got a topic you'd like us to get into, shoot us an email. And some people already have. Send it to viewermail@autoline.tv. We'll take phone calls too. That number is 620-288-6546. And we're going to get going here in just a moment. Watch Autoline After Hours live at Autoline.tv every Thursday at 3 p.m. Eastern Time. That's 12 p.m. Pacific. You can subscribe to this podcast for free by searching for Autoline in iTunes, Stitcher, or YouTube.
Autoline After Hours is brought to you by Bridgestone Tires, your journey, our passion, and by Lear, a global leader in automotive seating and electrical systems.
Mr. Gary Vasilash, we got another show on our hands
We
today.
do. I feel a little odd, though. This is the first time in a long time we have a car in the studio, but I think we've made up for it by having these two guys here.
A couple of car guys, and we should let everybody know we got Jake Holmes from Motor One. Great to have you here on the show, Jake.
Great to be here. Thanks for having me.
And Paul Eisenstein with the Detroit Bureau. And great having you here, Paul.
Great to be back with you, John.
Yeah. So, Gary, I know you always pick a number of topics you think we ought to get into. And on today's show, this is going to be a wide-ranging debate. Like you said, we don't have a car. We don't have a special guest from one of the car companies or the like. So we're going to let it.
We got these highly knowledgeable guys. And for people who are not familiar with Motor One, you guys are a website that covers all things automobile.
Everything automobile is the hope, from news, reviews, a little bit of everything.
Yeah. Okay. So we got it sort of squared away there. We know what these guys are all about. I mean, Paul knows everything. Okay. So we had sales. Okay.
October sales.
October sales.
Just came in.
So I want to we'll start with you, Paul. What's your take on how they did?
There's a couple of assumptions you have to question. Why did they do so well? It was a great month. I mean, after watching the industry seemingly spiral worse and worse and worse, suddenly we got great numbers in September and even better numbers in October. The big question is, will it be sustainable, or was this a peculiar thing that came out of the hurricane? Remember what they said, 500,000 vehicles destroyed in Texas alone, and then you had Florida and Puerto Rico was probably not going to measure anywhere. But will it be sustainable, or is it a 1 month or 2 month hit that will then vanish? Then the other question is, what do you read into the numbers? Because there are some real interesting things happening. In particular, the collapse, and it's virtually a collapse of the luxury side of the market.
Yeah. Jake, what do you? Well, let's get Jake in on it.
Yeah, I agree. I was expecting probably worse numbers than I saw, actually, and so I was pleasantly surprised by how they were. But yeah, I saw a lot of struggles on the luxury side, and as we've come to expect, a lot of big successes from SUVs and trucks right across the line. It seems like if you want to sell right now, you have to be selling SUVs, and don't put your hopes in your sedans anymore.
Well, not so much SUVs. It's crossovers. John, we spoke a little bit about this before the show. But that's the interesting thing, is basically designers have been told, just go and have fun. Design stuff that doesn't fall into any real category anymore.
Yeah.
And consumers have responded. They like the idea that there is quite literally something for everybody's tastes and need out there. I grew up where there were very, very narrow formulas. And if you were lucky, it was a little bit of difference in the bending of the sheet metal, but not much else. Now, it's pretty much everything goes. And I think the consumers in the U.S. are really resonating with that.
Gary, what's your takeaway?
Well, I mean, I agree with all that has been said. Okay, I think that
So we can leave?
Yeah, we'll see you guys later. Okay, so I think we're still dealing with a hurricane, because it seems to me that last month, I mean, how many people really got the insurance checks to be able to go out and get a new car? So I think that was an element why we had this in October. I think that, you know, we continue to see the strength in the crossover segment, and I'm not with you in terms of seeing these things being very bizarrely shaped or different. I mean, because if I look at the numbers here, I see that the best-selling light vehicle that isn't a Ford F-Series pickup truck or another pickup truck is basically the Toyota RAV4. I mean, and the Toyota RAV4 has basically been the RAV4 since the RAV4 has been the RAV4. Right. I mean, it's, and you know, and so that came in at 34,000.
Wait a minute. Can I quote you on that? The RAV4 has been the RAV4 since it's been the RAV. Okay, I just wanted to get that straight.
I left my notebook in the other room, but
and then the thing that really struck me, though, I mean, the whole thing about the luxury market, and this is very, very peculiar, I thought, and there was a great quote from Tom Libby, who works for IHS Markit, and we've had Stephanie on the show, and from IHS, and he says, currently 16 brands are competing in the exceptionally competitive luxury space, which accounts for just about 12% of the market, and most of these marques continue to expand their product portfolio by adding all new products or derivatives of existing models. With so many brands and models targeting a limited population, it is not surprising that several luxury marques, including Lexus, Infiniti, Acura, Lincoln, and Cadillac, I mean, like who's left, saw sales declines in October.
Yeah.
I mean, so are these guys all fighting for a shrinking pie that isn't very delicious anymore?
Yeah, and a couple of things, Gary. Number one, do you know that there's, I believe, only one dealer in the world that carries all of the Mercedes products? There's so many of them now. And that's something like a dealership in Dubai, if I remember correctly. You can't have them. People can't figure out what to get. So I think product confusion is the case. On the other hand, an interesting point that you raised, and it gets back to my point about something for everybody, there's still a handful of high volume models. And the RAV4, as you know, is becoming the #1 product, not the Camry anymore for Toyota.
Right.
But if you look, it's a fragmented market. When all of us were starting, if you sold less than 200,000 of a particular vehicle, it was considered a failure. These days, you can sell, in some cases, 5,000 or 10,000 units of a particular vehicle, and it's considered a success.
My takeaway, sticking with the RAV4 for the moment, is the RAV4 hybrid almost caught up to the Prius in sales. And I think there's two things going on there. Prius sales continue to nosedive.
Right.
And that RAV4 hybrid is red hot as far as hybrids go. You know, there's still a small slice of the market, but that number jumped out at me.
And they're going to be coming out with a new RAV4 that'll have a lower price point, so hybrid, so they'll even do better on
more.
that.
Yeah.
And but yeah, I mean, you look at the so the Civic came in at 30,000, and the RAV4 came at 34. CR Nissan Rogue, that we talked about that some months ago. I mean, that's still doing very well. I mean, they've sold 327,000 of those
That's a
so
lot.
far this year, and you know, and on it goes. And the Accord in October outsold the Camry, and the Civic outsold both of those.
Now, there's another thing
So
going on.
We may see the Camry being unseated this year for the first time in terms of car, not in terms
Yeah.
of RAV4.
Now, there's
The
another,
RAV4 is a RAV4.
There's another curious thing happening, and this is very difficult for a lot of folks to digest. I mean, I'm still not sure I have my head around it, is that we're seeing a lot of repositioning by the automakers. So, for example, the big three have been slashing, particularly Ford and GM, slashing their dependence on fleet, daily rentals in particular. And we're seeing other manufacturers that traditionally laughed at them for being so heavily based in fleet, getting into fleet in a big way. Toyota is becoming one of the biggest spenders on incentives and one of the biggest investors in the fleet market. So I don't know, is that a good thing or bad? Because they used to laugh at the way that the Detroit makers propped up sales, and now it's the Japanese in many cases
No,
that
you're
are doing
absolutely
exactly
right.
the same thing.
No, I would say Nissan, Hyundai, Mazda probably have a bigger push into fleet than Toyota. But yeah, Toyota, which sneered at fleet sales in the past,
Right.
is stepping that up.
Only Honda's remained true to its
Yeah.
foundation on
No,
that.
I agree. Hey, we got a question from a viewer while we're in on this. Chevrolet Bolt sales did pretty good. And so Breon Bowser wrote in to ask, is the Bolt sales success actually good for GM? Well, yeah, I don't know how it could be bad for GM.
They'll lose,
See it as a positive
they lose money.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, if they lose money, you'd say that's a bad thing, but I think it's a good thing.
Yes.
Because if General Motors / Chevrolet gets associated in people's minds,
With green and electric.
or with advanced technology. I mean, let's just just put it out there that way. I mean, when did you ever think advanced technology in General Motors? I mean, I know that.
But it's definitely a positive for the brand image, I think, to have
I
very
agree.
eco-friendly, modern electric cars running around with a Chevy badge on the front. I think
It's
that's great.
it's also showing something very interesting because they blew Tesla out of the water last month. Now, of course, Tesla can't build their Model 3, which was, to me, one of the biggest stories of the week, listening to Elon Musk fluff and just struggle to deal with the news that he had to deliver yesterday when
He had a cold.
Yeah. He also had a panic attack. If you listen to him, he was definitely flustered. And it was a very telling situation. They blew it. They blew it badly. They overpromised as typical.
The stock is still very high, still over 300, but way down from what it was
struggling
just
today.
recently.
Yeah,
The
not doing
stock
well
will be
today.
high if they go declare bankruptcy.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, so let's touch on that for a minute. I mean, I would think that. So what? It was $615 million loss in the third quarter.
910, I thought.
Whatever. They lost
They lost a lot of
hundreds of thousands of dollars.
millions of
Or
millions.
hundreds of millions, excuse
Right.
me.
Okay. So, and to your point, Paul, I mean, this Model 3 launch, and also, John, you mentioned that, and you know, if I was reading their letter to the shareholders sort of thing, and they're talking about, you know, we had bursts of volumes of 1,000 vehicles. Okay, bursts. So I basically figured that what they did was they ran a line a little bit and then calculated, okay, if it took us this long and we built this many cars, we could extrapolate and be 1,000, right? But I mean, if you look at final assembly, we had bursts of 500.
Because they've delivered fewer than 500
So,
cars total,
I mean,
right?
so think
it's
about this.
About half that.
To employees.
mainly to employees, yeah.
And they've got reservations for 500,000 cars.
Right.
Right? So how long, if they're building, let's give them the 1,000. Let's say the burst is sustainable, right? So in 52 weeks, how many cars will they build? 52,000, which is basically a tenth of what they have. I think this is it for those. I think.
Wow.
And how many
this-
reservation holders give up and go buy a Chevy Volt instead? Bolt, sorry. instead
Chevy
of-
Bolt, I think that's happening already.
And that's why
You're
that number is so
starting to
successful.
see people do that. That news conference was very telling. In fact, he borrowed a certain management style, a PR style, if you will, from a certain person in a house colored white in Washington, taking an assault on the media for what he said was our incorrect coverage of the firing of, 700 workers. It was the first time I've heard Musk take that approach to basically say we all blew the coverage. But he's got trouble in a lot of different places. And the most important thing that we have to be watching is, can they fix this? They claimed that it was a supplier who blew the programming in zone 1 of 4 zones.
But this is in the
That's
battery.
in the battery plant.
Yeah.
Not in the
Right.
production
But
plant.
across the board, they've made all sorts of problems. And the question is, will they be able to get this fixed? And will they be able to afford the second part of their assembly line? And that's a major problem, because if they cannot afford that, they may have to go back to stockholders, and they may not get as good a reception doing that yet again.
Well, you know, the thing I wonder about is that, okay, this industry is not standing still. I mean, and every single automobile manufacturer is working hard at bringing out fully electric vehicles or electrified vehicles, right?
Right.
And so, you know, we're going to begin to see choice. I mean, so when it's the Mission E, the Porsche is supposed to come out
Next year.
Do you remember?
Next year, but there's a new Nissan Leaf coming in a couple of months' time, which will be priced really, really competitively. That I could see tearing away people who had been waiting on the Model 3.
Right.
And maybe it's already happening with the Bolt EV, like you said. So there's a lot of competition to
Right.
Model 3.
You've got at least 20 long-range electric vehicles due by 2020.
Right. So the question then becomes, I mean, 2020 is not that long from now, and so you know, even if they get this thing running, I mean, is it going to be too little too late?
You know, I think Tesla has a history of under-delivering and over-promising.
Right.
This is another example of it. So if he's up to line speed July next year, I think he's good to go.
You think people will tolerate that? 'Cause
Well,
it's
you know,
part-
there will be enough they'll lose people who have put the deposit down. They'll lose a bunch of them. But there'll be enough there to go, hey, look, boom, we're hitting our line rate.
It
And
won't be.
well, we'll see.
No, I'll tell you why. Because right now, they are not spending. They said during the news conference, they are not going to spend right now on expanding the line so they can hit the 10,000 a week target that they said. And whenever they do spend the money, it's going to take a time to validate. And they've got to make sure that they don't make the errors that they did already. So it could take them a year or more
This is
before
the
they're
most
ready.
absurd. To your point, Paul. This is the most absurd line I've ever read, perhaps ever in the auto industry. Quote: "With respect to the timing for producing 10,000 units per week, it has always been our intention to implement that capacity after we've achieved a 5,000 per week run rate." Really? You know, and I bet you like 5,001, they'd have to wait till they had 5,002.
To me, the stupidest line.
Makes no sense.
It makes
yeah.
no sense.
The stupidest line that Musk came up with was talking about in some parts of manufacturing, we're hitting a run rate of 5,000 a week, 7,000 a week. And Gary, you know manufacturing. Your assembly line can only move as fast as your slowest station.
Right.
And so if you can make 7,000 a week over here, but you're only building
12.
12 a day, right?
Right.
It doesn't matter that you can make 7,000 over here. That's total overproduction.
Right.
It's a
So if they
waste.
so if they have this burst capacity of 1,000 units in stamping, but they have the weld capacity of 500 units in the burst capacity, seems to me you have large piles of stampings that are piling up all over the factory. So I just think this is it for him.
Can I tell you the real measure? This is the thing that will determine whether or not they make it. What has Tesla's biggest problem been to date? Quality.
Well, there's that too.
Okay? And they have been appealing, they've been selling to true believers who are willing to put up with a week out without a car, because they probably have 3 or 4 others besides the Model S or Model X. Well, the reality is Model 3 owners are more likely to have Model 3. And if those vehicles go out and they may have to truck them across the state or even to the next state to get them, they're not going to put up with it. They cannot have the problem that they have with the Model S today, never mind Model X. And remember, Model X was just declared by Consumer Reports tied as the worst vehicle on the road, along with, sadly, the Cadillac Escalade.
Right. Okay, we've beat Tesla into the ground. Here's a comment from Jonathan Brown, going back to our earlier conversation on crossovers. He says, ownership is longer and CUVs date slowest, meaning they keep the owners in style or contemporary longest. That's not a bad observation. Sedans, maybe we're just more used to looking at sedans, but the styling on CUVs tends to hold longer better. He may have a good observation there.
I think you could make an argument they last through more stages of your life as well. If you buy a CUV when you're young and then have a family or dogs or whatever, you can adapt and keep using that vehicle. If you have a 2-door coupe and suddenly have a family, it might not be so flexible to keep it so long.
Good point. Good point.
You know, to get back to you mentioning the Escalade, is anything going to pull Cadillac out of its doldrums?
What do you think, Jake?
That's a good question.
That was a large...
China?
Well, China's doing it. But I think Gary's asking here in the U.S. market.
I know what you're
What do you
That's
think?
a great question. I think we've seen a couple of years of strong designs and pretty good cars from Cadillac, and so I'm not sure what it takes to get that message from people like us to consumers.
Well, hold on, because read off the percentage decline in Cadillac's sedans.
So,
ATS is down how much?
so for the month or for the year?
For the month.
Okay, so for the month of October, ATS down 41.7.
41% CTS.
CTS down 23.9.
Wow.
And that isn't from a very big number either.
Right.
Well,
CT6, 39.5.
39. This is a brand new car. And
well, wait,
XTS.
what is the S-Class down?
XTS,
was
the
up.
true Cadillac,
What's up, right?
up 19.5%.
I think the market is telling Cadillac, and it's SUVs and crossovers are doing just fine.
Right. But that's the problem. They don't have.
They don't have enough.
They don't have the SUVs.
But what I'm
and
saying
CUVs
is
they
the
need.
market, and look, we can pick BMW apart, doing the same kind of analysis on it.
Number.
Get out of cars.
Yeah.
The market, unless it's a traditional XTS, which Cadillac would love to get rid of, and it's the best-selling car they've got. Car, not SUV, CUV.
But that's the one
best-selling
that's
car they've
thriving.
got, the one that they are trying to put a stake in. Look, you got to listen to the market, and the
Should they
market
bring
is
back
telling
the old
them.
Fleetwood?
Yes.
Well, I mean, isn't this sort of the point? We've talked about this before. Is that basically? I mean, you know, you look at the Continental. The Continental is had no pretensions of being a BMW fighter, right? It was meant to be a DeVille,
Yeah.
right? And now they didn't do so well
No,
this
sales
past
dropped.
month, but for
But
the
it's
year,
outselling the CT6.
for the year, they're doing very well. And
It's
in
not a
terms of
direct
Continental.
competitor to the CT6, would you say? Little less aspirational.
The Continental?
Yeah.
You get the black label Continental, load that baby up, you're good to go.
Massaging seats and all that stuff.
That's right.
Yeah.
All right.
You know the puzzling thing about maybe you guys have noticed this in driving those Lincolns with the powered seat that goes every which way. There should be like a reset button that takes you back to 0.
I totally agree. I think the more options you have for moving the seats, the less comfortable you get. The more uncomfortable positions you can find.
Right. You're like completely contorted, and you're just like, damn it, I've got to.
Because you have so many infinite, adjustments.
Right.
It's like, oh, now I can adjust it a
When
little
I
bit
can only
more, but
move
you're
it
never
in
satisfied.
4 ways, then I can easily find a position. But
Right.
30 ways.
Right. Yeah. I mean, so basically, your left leg is shorter than your right leg, and higher. And
I can think of the icon that they would use. It would be a pretzel with a slash through it.
There we go.
Okay, we've got another question here, but we're not going to answer it yet because Matt, the viewer, wants to know any remarks regarding Trump canceling the V2V mandate. And yes, we're going to talk a lot about that. But
boy.
first, we're going to take a commercial break. We're going to come out of that and talk to Dr. Data. But right now, a shout out to our good friends at Bridgestone. Okay, we're back. Autoline After Hours, and it is time for Dr. Data.
Okay, so this one is going to be somewhat, well, it's a traditional Dr. Data. So I'm going to provide a number, actually a set of numbers here, and I want you guys to identify what those numbers represent.
Whoa.
Okay. And so, Carmen, please bring the first slide up. So 3 years, 9,000, 6 years, 7,000. And John, for your benefit, I didn't know this. I had to ask back in the control room, but actually that spectral ghost-like thing in the back is actually...
It's a giveaway.
It's a giveaway, yeah.
See, because, I always try to guess what the numbers are. Sometimes I get it. I don't get this at all. It looks like some sort of yellow light.
Okay, but so you're not...
So that,
It's the decline in light output of
No,
headlights.
no. But
Yes, too.
Sometimes we talk about like the pollution in Paris. You'll see the Eiffel Tower, and then you'll say, "Oh, that's pollution in Paris, or whatever." But that provides no information whatever. I mean, I know what it is, and I can't even see it.
so it says 3 years equals 9,000, and the line below it says 6 years equals 7,000, and I have no idea what that means.
Jake,
I got nothing. I don't know where you're going with this.
Paul.
Okay, Dr.
All right.
Data.
All right. So before I give this away, so what we did was on the website, Autoline.tv, we ran a poll, and we asked people to give their answers, and so we gave them 4 choices. Okay, so 8% thought that so we just gave them the 9,000. So 8% thought that the 9,000 was the amount of time it takes to drive 9,000 miles
In a golf cart.
19% thought it was how long it would take Elon Musk to build 9,000 miles of his tunnel. 15% thought it would take 3 years to build a certain kind of a Lamborghini, and 58% thought it would take 3 years to recycle 9,000 Chevy Bolt batteries. So 58%. So
Is one of those the right answer?
sort of, yes.
Oh, sort of.
Okay, so bring up the next slide, please. So the 9,000 is
What?
that it basically took Lamborghini. Let's get this right here now. So blah, 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 blah. 6 years to build these cars. So
He's
they
not sure of this.
No, well, at least because I'm okay. So it was because I got these things. Right, 3 years, 9,000 miles. So it was the Huracan, which cost $200,000. It took them 6 years to build.
9,000 of them.
9,000 of them.
Oh,
And
okay.
7,000, next one,
Aventadors.
3 years.
So Aventador is selling better, is what you're saying.
What I'm saying is that a lot of people apparently have $4,000 or $400,000 to spend on a car. So actually, if we look at these numbers, so if you have 7,000 and 9,000 produced in 6 and 3 years respectively, that maybe Elon Musk is doing all right. Maybe I'm all wrong.
Maybe.
He's not selling his cars for quite this much, though.
That's a very good point.
No, but if you look at it, he is outselling. If I remember correctly, even though it was not good last month, the numbers for the Model S were greater than all the luxury sedans from competitors, including the
Right.
S-Class, the A8, the 7 Series, and anything else you want to throw in there. So from that sense, he's still doing all right in the high-end market.
Right. So let's not beat on him, but let's go to that question again, John.
Oh, yeah. Matt, the viewer, wanted to know, do we have anything to say about Trump canceling the V2V mandate? Paul, I know since he's your most favorite president of all time, you want to weigh in on this.
Oh, boy.
It would surprise me he has an opinion on this. I just can't imagine this would be the...
You can tell by me turning red at the idea you would even say that. I think it is one of the most absurd moves I've seen, because nobody, except the Competitive Enterprise Institute, which would oppose the government intervening to save a drowning child, seems to be supporting this decision. The automakers want V2V, in part because they need that technology for the autonomous vehicle development.
So explain to the audience who don't know what V2V is,
Okay,
what it is.
For those who don't know it, V2V is vehicle-to-vehicle technology. It's communication system. There's also V2I, which means vehicle to infrastructure, and generically they use the term V2X, which means, all of
Yeah,
this.
don't confuse it. Let's just talk V2V.
So vehicle to vehicle is my car talking to your car, talking to John's
So
car,
we're
talking to
driving
Jake's car.
We're driving down the road. My car is alerted when there's a traffic jam, a crash, bad weather. You're heading towards a light, and somebody in another car runs it. My car will get an alert, and in more advanced systems, might actually apply the brake automatically in time before I even realize there's something going on to avoid that accident.
Okay, and so what was canceled?
What they apparently are doing is canceling a mandate that would have within, what was it, John, 18 months.
2021, I thought it was.
It was basically as soon as,
There was a phase in.
right, 50% of all new vehicles built starting 18 months out, I believe, from the effective date of the mandate would have to have vehicle-to-vehicle technology. 3 years, I believe, it went to 100%. Automakers say that that technology is critical towards tomorrow's autonomous vehicles. And here's where it gets a total disconnect. The White House wants to cancel V2V just because it's a mandate. Congress is running around right now trying to put in place all sorts of new rules to promote the technology that needs the V2V technology to work. Explain that to me. It doesn't make any sense.
So what, I mean, okay, if I'm General Motors and I think this is good stuff, why don't I just put it in my cars?
You got to have
Well,
standards.
Cadillac's already got it.
But I mean, so
no,
why would you? I mean, why would you? So whatever the government
standardize
who cares what the government
for one
says?
thing. You need infrastructure because it's not just my car talking to yours, but it's also you guys are the infrastructure. You also have to participate in the communication. There's also issues going on with the spectrum. There's a debate going on. The only people that really seem to be happy about this are in the telecommunications industry because they wanted the same spectrum, and the FCC's been trying to figure out a way to let them both use a spectrum at the same time. It just makes no sense. The industry wants to go about doing this, and Congress, you would think, would be saying, wait a second, we need that technology for the rules we're trying to put in place to put more autonomous vehicles on the road.
Jake, what do you think?
I mean, you're right. Some car companies are developing their own, right? Cadillac has, and Audi has their own systems, and
Toyota.
Audi can talk to traffic lights in Las Vegas and things, but certain places and only certain cars. The whole point of this was to have every car on the road, and the study I saw said that they thought it would only cost a couple of $100s per new car to install this technology, could prevent a lot of crashes, even on human-driven cars, and it seems to me like a huge step backward to not add this technology. But like Paul said, the telecom companies really wanted that same frequency spectrum. They wanted to use it for cell phones and cable TV and so on. And I wonder if that's a little bit of why V2V cars lost out in the end.
I don't think that's the case. I mean, look, the Trump administration says it wants to get rid of regulations. Yeah. And here's a new NHTSA regulation, and they'll just kill the thing. And, according to NHTSA, or the DOT, it would add about $320 to $350 cost to the car. In this industry, that's a lot of money, if nobody else is doing it. If everyone's doing it, fine. We all eat the cost, we raise the price by that much, and we're good to go. To me, though, this is the most significant safety technology since the seatbelt. Way better than the airbag. This can prevent cars from crashing into each other. And as you were talking about, Paul, it can see around corners. With places you cannot see, V2V can see around what's going on.
Laser, radar, LiDAR,
No, I'm talking,
none of that can do that.
none of that can
What
do that.
can do
No, I
this?
see what you're going, right, yeah. So to me, this is the most significant technology anyway. I thought I saw a statement by Mary Barra saying, we're going to go around Congress and try to get this reinstated.
Yeah.
And, you know, GM has been out in the forefront. Cadillac was the first to offer it. But you're right, you know.
We've seen before that mandating safety systems is the way to go. You know,
It is.
stability control and
Yep.
tire pressure monitoring.
Exactly right.
There was a safety benefit. It was mandated, and then, like you say, there was no cost advantage from one manufacturer or another. Everyone had to have it, and I think that should have been the case
Do you
here.
remember something that happened? Sorry, Jake, I'm going to step on you. Do you remember what happened just before the end of the Obama administration? You saw the industry come together with NHTSA under Mark Roskind and say that they would form a series of consortia aimed at uniformly developing new safety technologies, trying to drive it in across the industry, one, to get it out in large numbers, but two, to also drive down costs. And this is one of the technologies that they were all in favor of. It strikes me as bizarre for the White House to be trying to get rid of a technology, a mandate, that the industry, normally averse to government reg, is calling for.
Right. Yep. And maybe, hopefully, with what Mary Barra said, if I got that right, there will be a push to say, hey, this is one regulation we really welcome.
Yeah.
Well, while we got Paul talking about the president, what's your take on NAFTA?
I don't disagree that any trade mandate should be looked at. All countries involved should be looking and considering updates as they go along. The approach, this heavy-handed approach, and particularly for the president to be stepping in and going public and interfering with the actions of his trade negotiators, threatening to get rid of it and so on, I think is, again, heavy-handed, ill-conceived, and ultimately quite dangerous to not just NAFTA, but to the country as a
I thought it
whole.
was very surprising that the auto industry has come out and said, hey, leave it alone.
Oh, yeah, look.
It's like they're saying it's okay. You know, I mean,
Yeah.
don't mess
rock
with
the boat.
don't mess with
Yeah.
success.
Right, right. And look, the supply chain in North America is the best in the world right now, I would argue. Certainly right up there with the best in the world. But I would argue it's the best in the world. Don't screw it up.
Well, here's
Now,
what-
there is one thing.
Yeah.
Mexican wages are way too low. To me, it is disgusting that a company like BMW is paying its new hires $1.10 an hour to assemble $45,000 vehicles.
Agreed.
To me, that is beyond stupid. And why Mexico lets them get away with this is bad. And people telling me, well, you got to understand the cost of living is less there. $1.10 an hour turns into an annual wage of $2,500.
Yeah.
That's what it's worth. And this is a country with a per capita income of $19,000. Now, in the United States, the average worker makes about $56,000, not including benefits. That's exactly what the per capita income is.
Yeah.
So at the very least, Mexican auto workers should be making $19,000 an hour, which, by the way, is about $9 an hour. So instead of paying them $1.10 an hour like BMW is,
Yeah.
they should be paying them $9 an hour.
The fact that they're paying them bare subsistence wages, barely subsistence wages, is just, it's criminal.
But that has nothing to do with NAFTA, though.
Well, it does. It does.
could.
Because this is
Because
one of
you
the
can mandate
reasons.
what wages are?
Well, what you can mandate is that you don't have these sham unions that are in bed with the car company and the local governor, who all they care about is a new plant comes in and they get a bunch of money on the side. That's what you can argue with in the NAFTA agreement, is that, no, you got to put teeth into your labor negotiations and you can't have these sweetheart deals being made.
Which is why I said that some revisions may be called for at times. To go back and renegotiate, to challenge certain assumptions and certain bad behaviors, you do have to work that into any trade organization and trade treaty. But what we're doing is just not being handled very well. By the way, one of the interesting things that I think a lot of people need to understand is there's another reason why Mexico is doing so well. And that has nothing to do with wages, or secondarily. And that is the fact that Mexico has more free trade agreements negotiated than any other country. And Dr. Data, can you tell me what the country that has more free trade agreements than Mexico is?
China?
Israel. That's the only other country with more. And so as Audi has with the new Q5, a lot of people want to use Mexico as a global base because they can ship it all over the world and have minimal to no tariffs.
So what is BMW building there?
God, I wish I could tell you right off the top of my head. It is, I want to say, the X5.
No, it's
all the
not.
X's-
Somebody look it up and
Smart
tell the
part.
chat room what they make in Mexico.
Don't know off the top
Okay,
of my
so
head.
let's say it's the whatever series. Okay, so then couldn't BMW basically say to the United States, if the United States tried to say, hey, you've got to do what you're saying, have the labor unions be legitimate, and blah 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 blah. They, you know what? We're just not going to sell you that car. We're going to just sell them the rest of the world.
Okay. Be my guest. Drop out of the richest, largest SUV market in the world.
No, but the SUVs, it's not an SUV. We know that
Okay.
for sure. So all the SUVs are out of Spartanburg.
Okay,
for
you're
the
right,
global.
you're right.
That's a global thing. But
Okay,
so my point is that so we've seen so many car companies build factories down there, and building factories down there because they basically looked at it and said this is economical for us to be able to build here because of wages and incentives or whatever else, right? I mean, so you've got Nissan's got a giant plant there, Mercedes, Infiniti, Audi, the big three, you name it, right? I mean,
Everybody's there.
Everybody's there, and so basically it's just like, don't they sort of have some advantage? I mean, the company's not the country of Mexico, to make decisions to say, you know what, as we were talking about China and Cadillac. I mean, so basically the China market is huge. We'll just sell there.
Yeah, but you're not going to be able to because you're going to get slapped with a 25% import tariff. That's going to make up all the savings that you've got in Mexico. And if you look at exports out of Mexico, I want to say about 60% of that production goes to the U.S.
Yeah, it's very large.
Giving up on the U.S. is giving up on a lot of volume.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
Here's the other weird thing about it, though, and it seems short-sighted in the long run. As Henry Ford taught us, and as China is now teaching us, one of the best ways to kickstart your economy is to what? You pay your workers in auto plants very well. They go out and buy your own cars. The Mexican auto industry, what is it, 1/10 the size of our auto industry per capita? Somewhere in that neighborhood. It's a very small market when it comes to buying cars. It's an extremely top-tier country when it comes to building cars.
Yeah, no, you're right. I mean, Mexico's got a population of over 100 million.
I thought it was 150 now, John.
Yeah, it's over 100 for sure. Canada has a population of, I want to say, about 35 million.
Right,
They both sell about the same number of vehicles.
right. Yeah.
Okay. Barry, we're coming up on a break. Should we just take a break now, or do you got something?
This
to
will be
get in?
quick.
Okay.
Okay.
go.
So we're talking about China. Okay. So this is a bizarre number, and I want somebody to explain to me what this is. Okay. So I was looking at the light vehicle sales. Okay. So this is through September, 17,583,000 vehicles, right? Production, 16,972,000. So there's a delta of 611,000 units, meaning 3.5% of their cars must be imported. 3.5%. What do we have, like 50% imported? Or built by
No, wait. Are you talking imported or coming from foreign-based manufacturers?
foreign-based?
Well, foreign-based manufacturers, it's well into the majority now, but the vast majority of those are built in the United States, assembled in the U.S.
So what would 3.5% of the Chinese market be not built in China?
Luxury.
Yeah,
Luxury
that's
stuff.
probably-
Specialty.
Look, if the Germans especially,
F-150.
and Cadillac made a bunch of money exporting cars to China. If you export cars to China, you don't have to share the profits with your joint venture partner. Now, you do get hit by the 25% import tariff. But if you're bringing in an AMG GT, the Chinese will snap it up all day long. And so you get all the profit. You got to take off 25% tariff, give that to the government, but you keep all the profit. And so on high-line cars, there's still imports coming in where that customer in China says, I don't care about the tariff, just give me the damn car.
Yeah, I'd guess even a BMW X6 or something being exported from South Carolina over there would make up part of that, yeah. And yeah, like you say, there's a tariff, but that customer can afford it in that situation.
Yep.
Expensive cars are the way to go.
Yeah. Okay, let's take a break right now. We got to give a shout out to our friends at Lear.
Lear Connexus offers a parental controls application with geofencing that sends notifications regarding driving behavior and location, including curfew alerts, acceleration alerts, and speed alerts. All delivered to a smartphone application that includes vehicle location, driver notifications, and a report card of driving history, including notifications when predefined geographic boundaries are crossed. For more information, visit Lear.com.
Okay, we're back, and we're going to get to a bunch of rapid-fire questions right now. Dan the Man says the next 3 Series will be built in Mexico, but that's on the BMW side. Let's see, there were a couple of questions here that I thought were pretty good. Oh, George from Sunnyvale wants to know, how do you move an autonomous car with no steering wheel and pedals onto a truck or a ship for transport? This would include getting it in position to tie it down. If it takes slower, will not transport costs go up?
Just put it on a pallet.
I guess you could have some sort of remote control system, right? Drive it from outside of the car with the joystick, but that's a great question. I think no one's gotten to that point
Well,
yet.
remember that Ford came up with recently with a technology, a patent, that they can have steering wheel either pop out or they could stick a steering wheel
Well, this
in.
guy's saying, he's talking level 5, no
But
steering
I'm talking
wheel.
about that. Even on some of those vehicles, you may wind up having either some sort of remote control, little joystick you can operate, or you may have an actual panel that might uncover.
I think you guys are overthinking this. These cars are going to be able to go park themselves.
Well, that's
Audi's already demonstrated that, where you get out of a car, you hit the button, go park yourself, it drives into a parking structure, finds an open spot, and backs into it.
That's assuming these cars are power. They have power.
Well, how else are you going to get them on a truck? I mean, either somebody's in the car and drives it.
You're right.
So, look, don't worry about it. Autonomous cars will get on the
will be solved
trailer,
by that
they'll
point.
get on the ship, no problem. In fact, right now, you've got to leave enough door space if you're putting a car on a ship for the driver to get out.
Oh.
Theoretically, you could park them right next to each other if no driver's getting out. You could put more cars on a ship.
And you might be able to get them on and off quicker if you don't have people running back to get the next car and drive it on.
Because if you've ever seen, I've never been and seen it, but I've seen videos, and it's a fire drill of people running back and forth all the time. So, yeah, autonomous cars, no issue with that. Okay, I'm going to throw this one to you, Jake, because here's a guy that wrote in to want to know, why is the U.S. spec Ford EcoSport 200 pounds heavier than where it's sold elsewhere? And he says he's not surprised that the EPA fuel economy numbers are lower than key competitors. I don't know is that the EPA numbers have been released on the EcoSport. I don't believe they
I didn't
have.
think they had been too. But we've seen this a lot when cars have come from other markets, especially Europe, and the EcoSport's built in India to be imported here. That a lot of times to meet our really tough crash regulations, right? There's a lot of reinforcement built in, but also we often tend to have more highly contented cars. Sometimes, European markets or Asian markets might accept cars with less content. And I know in the EcoSport they're going to put a lot of features in, an optional sound system and things. So I would guess that those two things together combine to probably bring the weight up by a couple 100 pounds. But yeah, I haven't seen specific fuel economy figures yet.
No.
Comfortable seats.
Frank Reed wants to know, or says, Cadillac's problem is their interiors. The cars drive well and look good, but compared to their competitors in each segment, they are second rate, especially the ATS. You agree the interiors are not good?
Their interiors are not up to, say, an Audi standard. Maybe BMW, which has never been as fancy inside. I think they could upgrade a little bit. I don't think that's the only reason, but I think it's one of them. And part of it is also reputation.
What do you think about their interiors, Jake?
I like the interior styling. I mean, I agree with Paul. I don't think they're maybe at the top tier level we might see in like an Audi or Mercedes. I think maybe a bigger issue is the space in the interior. I know when I look in the back seat of an ATS or CTS, it's not as big as in the back of a German car or an Lexus that's in the same class. Maybe not a 3 Series.
BMW has always had that small back seat problem.
That's true. But I wouldn't say universally that I dislike Cadillac interiors.
Yeah, I
didn't say I dislike them. I don't think that they're necessarily. Mark Royce likes to say we no longer accept good enough or competitive. And I think Cadillac needs to, and Lincoln needs to, jump another hoop. They've got to take things to the point where when you get into their cars, you go, wow, I can't believe this is a competitor to and you look down on the Germans or Japanese or British.
In the new Navigator, I was very surprised at the interior. I mean, it's just like, wow, this is...
Yeah, the Navigator is a
new
good
Navigator
example.
is really nice. And I think with Cadillac, part of the problem is that there is some parts sharing with other GM products. And I look
Tahoe, Silverado.
and I look at some of the knobs and switches, and I just think, you know what, this isn't Cadillac. And, you know, a lot of the trim ought to be Cadillac exclusive, and it doesn't seem to be.
Yeah.
Okay, Mike from San Francisco wants to know, should the next EV from General Motors be a sedan, or should it be an all-wheel drive CUV?
CUV.
That answers itself. doesn't it?
Yeah.
Right. We've been talking about the death of sedans
And
all
let's add a
along.
little bit more. They need to boost the performance even higher. They need to really make it a standout. The Bolt is a fun car to drive, but it's not a standout in pretty much any way. It's really good, but I'd like to see something that I can throw a switch and really just my neck snaps like it does in some Tesla models, that the interior just gets up to the level that I go, wow.
So should the Bolt have been a Buick or something? I mean, you know, there's always that argument that the ELR should have come out before the Volt, and that it would be the technological tour de force, and then we're going to make it available to the masses. And I mean, wouldn't it be the same thing with the Bolt? To say, you know what, we've got this
People are
luxury
already
car.
criticizing how much the Bolt costs, right, and saying it's too expensive for an electric car. I think then if it was a Buick and it were more expensive, you'd have that same issue. I think that, I don't know if people want a luxurious EV, but I do think that an all-wheel drive crossover makes all the sense in the world. Everyone I talk to wants all-wheel drive. Even if they live in California or Florida, they still want all-wheel drive.
I think the Bolt was the right place to go mainstream at that price, with that range and reasonable performance. I think they really hit it mostly out of the park, if that's possible. Could they have done a Model S fighter as well? Yeah, they could have, and I wouldn't think it'd be a bad idea for them to come up with one in those 20 models that they say they have coming by 2023. But they've got to make sure if they do, they get it right. The ELR, even if the Chevy Volt with a V had not been there to begin with, still wouldn't have been a success. It wasn't good enough. That big tunnel in the middle, the range still wasn't quite good enough in electric mode. The performance definitely wasn't there. It had a great interior. That was probably one of the best interiors a Cadillac has done. So if the drivetrain had been a Cadillac-level drivetrain, then the answer would have been yes. It should have been an ELR first and then a Chevy Volt after.
Could be. I think sales wouldn't change a whole lot. Just look at the overall green car segment. It's still 3%, a little over 3% of the market. And there's more hybrids coming, more plug-ins coming, more BEVs coming, and all it's done is sliced up the market more thinly.
Except the study that I read today, John, says it's going to be big news coming forward.
I know everyone's predicting that EVs are going to take over the market.
Well, I find particularly interesting, I'm talking about a study that was released to the media today by the Boston Consulting Group. And here's the shocker. They're saying that by 2030, a full 50% of the U.S. market will consist of electrified vehicles. Now, that ranges from micro-hybrids, the 48-volt systems.
We all knew
conventional
that before
hybrids.
they said that.
Right.
But what do they say,
plug-in-
BEV?
BEV,
Surprised it's only 50.
BEV, 20%. That's a big number. And by the way, their numbers are based on some conservative assumptions on battery cost and on fuel costs. If I would tend to think that their number on fuel oil is low, and that their price for where batteries are going is high.
So that would be about 3.5 million vehicles a year that are BEVs by 2030.
Now, what's interesting is there's another assumption baked into
And that's just the U.S., right?
Yeah. The whole world is about 50%, but the mix varies. So, for example, China will also be heavy BEV and a lot more plug-ins than we are. Japan will be primarily micro and conventional hybrids. And it has a lot to do with price for electricity and also how much mileage you drive, which determines what sort of payback you get. What I found very interesting, though, was a full half of the BEV, the pure battery electric vehicles, they estimate will go into ride-sharing fleets, Lyft, Uber, Get, whoever, and will be fully driverless. And it makes sense if you think about it. If you assume driverless technology is coming, those cars are going to log a lot of miles, 50, 100, 150,000 miles a year. And when you're getting up into that sort of mileage, the savings on energy and on maintenance of a fully electric vehicle can be substantial. That's where they can make a lot of extra money.
Yeah, but so, let's see, 3.5 million vehicles, that would be what? 14 assembly plants worth of production churning out battery electrics in the next 13 years.
Yeah.
Unless it's in Fremont, California, and there'd be much more.
Yeah, but right, 500,000 in one plant, right. I'll believe it when I see it. Look, I have no question in my mind the industry is going to go, the market, that's the more important thing.
Yeah.
The market is going to go full electric at some point. Electrics are so quiet, they're so smooth, you know, no vibrations, instant
They can be
response.
fast, they can be cheap
Right.
to maintain.
But boy,
At what
in
point
13
is that?
years,
At what point is that going to be, John? Are we going to be talking about that, or will our avatars be doing it?
it'll be the avatar. Okay, let's move on. Ray Mitrowitz, boy, I butchered your name there, Ray, but excuse me. What cars are you guys most excited to see at LA and Detroit soon? Gary, let's talk with you.
I haven't said anything. What am I most excited to see at LA and Detroit? I haven't even really thought about that.
Okay, Jake?
At the LA show, I'm excited to see the Jeep Wrangler in person. We just saw
Yeah,
3
that's
photos
true.
of it. We've been waiting a long time to see a Wrangler, a new Wrangler.
Right.
It's sort of a real iconic vehicle for Jeep, right? And this one looks like it's kept what we love about the Jeep, but advanced it. So I'm really excited to go and get
I
to poke
agree.
around that in person.
Yeah.
Yeah, I absolutely agree.
Any other cars you can think of, Paul?
Well, you know, it keeps going back and forth on whether we'll see the Supra there or not. If we do.
Toyota Supra?
Yeah. If we do, that's going to be a fun vehicle.
This would be LA?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know-
I'm not sure we're going to
I-
there or Detroit.
I know Toyota's got big reveals at both.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking that Detroit is going to be, well, I don't know, we're just guessing, right? My guess is it's going to be something more environmental than performance, but maybe I got
But
that
LA,
flipped.
LA sometimes goes that direction. It's hard to tell with the LA show.
Right.
Last year wasn't very green, and it normally is. So I don't know. I'll also be curious to see how well they handle their automobility conference, which of course opens the day before the regular
Yeah.
press preview. Last year was as boring as
Yep.
guano, and the year before it had a lot of very interesting technologies
Right.
to bring out. Last year, if you missed it, who cared?
I think, isn't Ram going to show the new Ram pickup in
That's
Detroit?
right.
In Detroit, yeah.
Detroit.
And now you've about exhausted my knowledge of what's coming.
I think those two, the Jeep and the Ram, I think are going to be really big debuts for FCA. They're money makers and they sell a lot.
Wrangler's going to be essential, and the Chinese are going to want to know what they're going to be buying.
Yeah. Look, Jeep is starting to, you know, they got the pickup coming, they got the Grand Cherokee or Grand Wagoneer coming.
They've got
so
the pickup coming, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, the pickup's going to be very interesting. I mean, do you guys think it will be more than the Flash? Will it be a major product, or will it just be sort of a quirky niche offering from Jeep?
I think with the love people have for Jeep and Wrangler, I think it will. When you see the number of people who spend quite a lot of money in the aftermarket to make Wrangler pickup trucks, I can see that succeeding. I think people just love the Jeep brand, right, and love Wrangler, and whether they actually do it or not, liking to think that they can go off through the desert and through mud and trails. And
I think what we've learned is that every brand's got to fight for itself. And so if you look at JLR's, Jaguar Land Rover's strategy, Jaguar was going to do cars, Land Rover was going to do SUVs, and that was how it worked. And then Jaguar realized we're getting our teeth kicked in. We got to come out with SUVs, and boom, their sales took off, and it didn't hurt Land Rover. So, you know, here's the argument that's been Ram is trucks and Jeep is Jeeps, and you know, Jeep doesn't need a truck. Well, yeah, it
They
does,
do.
and I think it'll do just fine.
I think so too.
Jeep sales down 11% so far this year.
So far this year, but remember, this
A lot of stuff out of production and people waiting for the new Wrangler.
Yeah, exactly, right. You know, what were the Compass numbers? They were not too bad, right?
Well, the Compass
The new Compass.
for
It's down substantially.
18 for the year, up 81% for the month of October.
Yeah.
So the new one is
But what
doing
was their
very
actual
well.
numbers? How many did they sell?
11,207.
That's not a bad number. No.
I just-
11,000 and you're just getting going? That's a
drove
good
the new
number.
one. And it's nice.
It's good.
It's a good vehicle.
I don't like the engine, but other than that.
Yeah, it's not a great engine.
Minor detail.
yeah.
It's a
I think
great
that makes
car,
it
but I
go,
sure
right?
don't like driving.
But as far as I know, they'll address that. But the whole vehicle itself comes together very nicely.
Yeah.
Have you driven?
Yeah, and it's really nice. And you're looking at the point where there's a Jeep for everyone, right? In every size and price range, there's a model for whichever one you want.
And
which I
not
think-
the old confusion of the Compass and Patriot either.
Right, combined those into one model, which is a really nice improved model, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, one last viewer question, then we'll get into some of our topics too. So, John Krugerud says, will sound systems be important in a level 5 self-driving car? A tablet and some good headphones will be good to go if I don't have to pay attention to the road. He's got a good point. You know, if all you're going to be doing is working on your tablet while the car does its driving, do you need a killer sound system?
Well, part of the question is, whose level 5 car? Are you going to be driving in one that you ordered up from Lyft, or is it going to be one that you pay for?
Good question.
I would expect, certainly with the mobiles, you know, the ride-sharing systems, they're going to load that car up with screens and audio, and if there's competition, it will be to make the interior and environment as cool as you want it to be. And what's going to happen is you are going to show up, or when the vehicle shows up, you'll walk out with whatever your smart device is, whether it's a smartphone or a pad or whatever, and it's going to automatically sync, and all that stuff will give you, it'll already be set up for the temperature you want, it'll play the audio you want, it'll put on multiple screens of different services you want, plus of course ads that they'll be putting in there to make money on.
Yeah. Speaking of autonomy, Gary, one of the things you wanted to talk about was Waymo.
Yeah,
They made a big announcement
Yes,
this week.
so this week they basically brought journalists out to California to their proving ground, and they've basically been a company that's been somewhat silent. But John Krafcik got out there and said to one and all, you know, look, this is our vehicle, and this is what it can do. Why now? Are they feeling the pressure from, I don't know, Ford or General Motors?
I hope so. They should be. You've got Delphi, which split itself into two. The old Delphi name goes with the old metal bending stuff, the powertrain side. The new side, which is, interestingly enough, what they say will be the heart of the corporation going forward, is being renamed Aptiv. And that is going to be focusing heavily on electronic systems, including autonomous and driverless. You've got Continental, you've got, how many others out there?
But I'll say this. I think Waymo is way out in front of all the other suppliers.
You know?
Way out
Okay,
in
are they?
front.
Okay, let's.
Are they,
let's-
John?
Are they going to be a supplier?
That's the question.
Okay,
right?
what do you think?
Probably. I think you provide software and hardware and give it to people. Because as Tesla is teaching us, building cars is hard, and it's really tough to go into the making cars
So,
business.
okay, so do you think that it would be, so remember when Ford Sync came out and it was powered by Microsoft? People seem to forget that now, but I mean, that's where it all came from. Would it be, so now I have a Chevy Malibu powered by Waymo?
No, I don't think the public is going to care about that. But we are going to evolve from my car is faster than your car to my car is more autonomous than your car. My car can drive across the field to the tailgate party at the football game. Your car can't do that. And so, yeah, I think that whoever gets to the market first with a truly autonomous level 4, level 5 car.
And that's what Krafcik says.
And that's what he's got.
He's saying level 3, forget about it.
Oh, yeah. Ford has said the same thing.
And they, by the way, have been hinting at going right up to 4 and 5 for a while. I did not find that new. Krafcik has said that in a couple
Yeah,
of
right.
scrums
Yeah,
that
yeah,
I've been
this
in
was
for a
not-
while.
yeah,
Because
Exactly
basically,
right.
so for those who don't know, so basically level 4 is it's autonomous within a geofenced area that it
is
drives
capable
itself.
of driverless, fully driverless
Right.
in geo and weather fenced
And
conditions.
level 5 is just
Go anywhere.
right. And level 3 is that it has capability, but the driver has to be capable of taking back control within some period of time.
See, the key thing I think that what my takeaway from the Waymo thing was Krafcik said autonomy is going to be here way sooner than most people realize.
Yeah.
Way sooner to me means before 2020.
So this will be before all those electric vehicles are going to be out.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. But so your question's the most important one. What is their business strategy? Are they going to partner up with somebody, or are they just going to become a supplier? Say, hey, any OEM that wants to buy it, we're ready to sell.
See, the thing that I wonder about is that, okay, how does Google make its money? Selling ads.
Advertising.
Right. So, I mean, that's their whole business model. We think of them, oh, they just give us all that free information when we Google things, right? But no, they're selling ads. So why would they leave what has proven to be a tremendously successful model and just basically say, okay, Mr. Automaker, I'm going to sell you this package of hardware and software, and that's it?
Because I think you got to stand back and look at it. It's more than advertising. Google is the master at monetizing data. And autonomous cars are going to generate more data than anything, more than your phone, your tablet, your current car, whatever. And they're just rubbing their hands in glee, I think, of saying, if we sell the system, we have first crack at the data. And I think there's going to be huge negotiations going on between OEMs who are buying versus OEMs who are doing everything in-house, like GM and Ford and Toyota and others are. And look, you know, McKinsey came out with a study that says monetizing car data will be a market anywhere from $450 billion to $750 billion by 2030.
Approaching the size of the auto industry today.
Well,
The
no,
new
no,
car.
it's not quite.
That's
But
a $1 trillion industry.
well, it's a multi-trillion dollar industry. But the
I'm talking
point
US,
is that,
US.
no, I'm talking globally. I want to say the global automakers' revenue is about $2.5 trillion, something
globally,
like that.
yeah.
But here is a market that does not exist at all for all practical purposes, going to potentially, let's call it close to $1 trillion in the next 15 years or so. So that's a huge amount of money, and I think that's what Google has got its eyes on, and they've got to get automakers buying their system, because the big guys, GM, Ford, Toyota, probably Mercedes and others, are going, no, we're going to do this all in-house.
Well, here, let me throw something at you, and this is where it gets really difficult to do any sort of prediction right now. What will the model be for 2030? In other words, when we, toddling along in our canes, want to get
Jake's not going to be on a cane. He's a young dude.
when he's wheeling us along in our wheelchair, what vehicle will he put us in? And for one thing, we talked earlier about the rise of car sharing. What will car sharing mean to the business? If I pull out my phone and I just go, send me, I may pick larger, luxurious, cheap, and so on. But will I be pressing the button to say, bring me the Ford or the Volvo or the Mercedes or so on? And there's a good argument that other than maybe size and class, I won't care the brand that pulls up. So you
Brand of car.
Brand
the
of car.
brand of service
right.
that brings the car.
Oh,
So now-
Uber does right now,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
So you want a
But-
black car, get a black car. You want to...
And that's all that matters too.
But
Yeah.
Gary, right now, that's only a couple percent of total rides. Some people are talking about 1/3 of the miles that people will clock by 2030 in the United States will be in one of those rideshare vehicles. So at that point, one has to say, who has the power in the business? It will be, going
Google.
forward, over the next 10 years, you're going to see 3 different groups battling for dominance. The ride-sharing companies, the OEs who will manufacture, they'll bend metal, and the technology firms. And Waymo wants to make sure that they are in the game and are not just a supplier that just you say, let's see, on this plot of products, I'm going to load up with the Continental technology, and next time I'll go with Waymo, next time I'll go with Delphi or whoever. They want to be the go-to. And it may be that in 10 years or 15 years from now, the biggest player in the business is going to be known as Uber, Lyft, Get, or some other entity to come along. And the OEs won't be much more than sheet metal suppliers.
Could be. It could absolutely happen. And that's why, you know, they're all jumping in right now to make sure that they're players.
Exactly.
And all three, in the tech, in the manufacturing, in the ride service.
Yeah.
But yeah, we shall see.
You know, I want to mention, so
Yeah.
remember we had Larry Dominique from Peugeot
Yeah.
on the show.
I know where you're going with this.
So, all right, so who has seen Blade Runner 2049?
I have not.
Not yet.
No.
Nope, not yet.
Yeah.
All right,
So tell us why you're
all
bringing
right.
this up.
So Ryan Gosling, who is the main character in this one, you know, Harrison Ford's role is very small. Ryan Gosling's playing the cop in LA in 2049, and his flying car is a Peugeot.
Oh,
So I contacted Larry and I told him, I said, gee, Larry, you've become successful, but you've become successful in 2049 in the future. So as you can see there on the back of that vehicle, where it
Peugeot.
saes Peugeot. And it was very surprising to see that. And
Did Larry know about this?
apparently he did, but he had nothing to do with it. I mean, he was
this was
acknowledging-
purely,
Come on.
this was not a placement, this was,
Well, I'm sure it was, but I don't think Larry was, I mean, because he came to he was named
Oh, yeah.
to...
Just this year.
Yeah, so...
And this movie's been in the works way before he got here.
But isn't it interesting that it's Peugeot in LA in 2049? And, you know, we're talking about all this car sharing and ride sharing, and Larry's first product to this country is that...
the app.
The app,
The
right?
ride-sharing app.
The ride-sharing app that aggregates all of this stuff, right? And so you get this, and
Yeah.
so someday you may find yourself in the back of a
Peugeot.
cop car. You put your head down.
bang your head. Remember, you're supposed to bang your head at criminals now?
That's right.
Okay, let's wrap it up. Paul Eisenstein, thanks for coming on the show.
Pleasure.
Jake, been great having you
Thank you
here
so much,
representing
guys.
Motor One. And Gary, always good to be sitting next to you here. And let's do it again next week.
Okay.
And of course, got to thank all of you for having tuned in.
Autoline After Hours is brought to you by Bridgestone Tires, your journey, our passion, and by Lear, a global leader in automotive seating and electrical systems.
Visit our website, Autoline.tv, where you can watch us live Thursday afternoons. Get your daily fix with Autoline Daily and in-depth analysis and interviews with Autoline This Week. There's all that and much more at Autoline.tv.
And then, did you see the? And I saw this on an airplane, and I'm glad I saw it on an airplane and didn't actually pay money for Arrival, the one where the Jessica Chastain is in it, and there's an object that lands, and they have to decode what it's saying.
I don't think
Did you see
I
that
saw
one?
that one, no.
Was that with the big rock, the floating rock? I saw that one.
Yeah, and
What
I mean
movie
they
is
have to.
this?
And so
It wasn't that bad, actually.
But okay, but
You're saying it's a good airplane movie.
Yeah.
well, no, but see, but that rock one. I mean, so here we have this alien thing that comes in, and you know, so basically the entire movie's about semiotics. I mean, it isn't. There's no action. There's no aliens. They're shooting anybody. I mean, it's not like
bomb.
It's not like Independence Day or anything like that. But it's very moody. And so the director of that film is the director of Blade Runner 2049. So it is more moody than action.
Huh, okay.
So
I have wanted to see Blade Runner. I've heard very positive things overall.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a good movie, but I mean, it's again, you know, you need to know the backstory.
Because you won't get it just from
You won't
coming
get it
into
just.
that one.
I mean, they try to give you some clues, but you know, you wouldn't really.
You don't have Rutger Hauer.
There's no Rutger Hauer. There's no Daryl Hannah.
Hannah.
But there is what's her name? Sean Young.
That's scary.
It is scary when you see her. It's scary.
Didn't Sid Mead do the cars and the set for the first?
For the original one, yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, no, going back to the Krafcik stuff, you ask a good question. Why did they do this big media thing now?
Because Johnny Liu is, no, never mind, don't get me going on Johnny Liu.
He's the PR guy.
He's a PR guy.
For Waymo.
Yeah.
Okay.
For Krafcik. But no, I mean, I just found it to be fascinating. And okay, so didn't Mary Barra say something about it'll be quarters, not years before
Yeah.
we have our
Yeah.
autonomous vehicles out on the road?
Something like that, yeah.
And was this maybe, John's reaction to that, saying,
I think so.
okay,
I don't know if it was turned around that. I can't tell if it was turned around that fast.
But you were starting to see a critical mass of Cadillac was letting people drive Super Cruise, Audi was demoing self-driving, or self-steering at least, A8s, and people making promises that cars are coming soon. So
You say you triggered a thought there, because BMW is putting together this consortium with Mobileye, which now Intel's part of because they bought Mobileye, and Delphi's in there.
Right.
And I wonder if, all John's got are these Waymo Pacificas. No OEM has stepped up and said, let's sign the line. Not to our knowledge.
Well,
at
wait, now
least.
he also did a deal recently with Honda, if I remember correctly.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
yeah, I think.
But is that a test?
Yeah, it's a it's sort of like this. But they were very vague. John likes to keep everything they do very vague.
Well, I don't blame him for that, but I'm wondering if he's seeing, wow, this grouping is starting to happen, and we got to make sure we're part of it.
Does the word Tesla ring a bell? At some point, do you have to start worrying that I'm so cool, I'm so hip, and oh, shoot, everybody else is starting to leapfrog me?
Yeah.
All the other people who are out there that people know are jumping. And unlike Tesla, he's not selling stock directly. And so he's not building up this
Right. But
great
see-
buzz
right.
in the stock market.
Right.
I get the sense that basically, I mean, these guys have been, they've just been doing their work. They've been, and yes, they have the cars that
of
are
it.
out there, and they're just, and so, he's not making a big deal out of anything, and so like, maybe it's just because we do what we do, and so we know about these, BMW working with Mobileye,
Yeah.
and we know about, NVIDIA is doing this, that, and the other thing with Audi, and so on and so forth. But, the average consumer doesn't have any idea what
and
any
this
of
is probably
stuff
the first self-driving car story a lot of people saw in the general press,
Yeah.
right? Was, people went and rode in these Waymo cars that.
Well, Google cars then.
Well, yeah.
And
Google cars originally, now
is a
the
good
Waymo
name
ones.
to have it to begin with.
Right.
And of course, Google, we know, is more than just the website, because they do Google Glasses, and they're toying with all sorts of things. So people know Google is out there doing really far out tech and medical and everything else. So it does fit. I mean, there's a lot of stuff they're doing that just goes off, which supposedly fits the broader mandate, do no evil, blah, blah, blah.
Well, that's what they always said, was that self-driving cars was just to do a good for the world, right? Was to
Right.
improve the world. But
as long as they can make some money.
Well,
like you
as long
say,
as
there's
there's
a
monetize
profit.
the data, right?
There's going to be ads somewhere.
But I mean, so the question then becomes that, okay, if you have all of these disparate companies doing different things, right? I mean, and let's not forget, Apple is also,
Somewhere in there.
they're working on this stuff
Somewhere in
as well.
there,
They're continuing
right.
to do that,
Yeah.
right? So basically you end up having a situation where, okay, so let's say Waymo has a fully baked level 4/5 system. And let's say that BMW has one, and let's say that General
Yeah.
Motors has one, and let's say that Toyota has one, and so on. So does this basically mean that Waymo's got to find someone to sell it to,
Right. Do you
because these guys all have, or is it possible that they will end up having the superior system that then becomes the standard by which all else is measured?
Nobody buys your technology. It doesn't matter if you are the second coming.
Well, but this relates to safety, and so this is not a beta, VHS argument. This is, if you've got a system that the lawyers are going to cry because it's so good, they're not going to be able to sue you. Wow, that's powerful. Look, I've been in some of these autonomous cars. I've been in the ones that the suppliers are working on. They're not there. They're not there. And when you look at the videos that Cruise Automation has put out, wow, is it impressive. And when you hear the things that were talked about at Waymo, wow, is it impressive.
Yeah, that's what I get.
And, it takes millions of miles of on-road testing. It takes billions of simulation miles. And the only guys who are out there right now, as far as I can tell, are GM and Waymo.
Well, did you actually? It's
And
interesting.
Waymo ahead of GM in terms of on-road.
Wait.
Bill Ford said at the Economic Club of Detroit this week that we're going to be the winner
Well,
in this space, right?
did you guys? See,
I hope he's right. You know, but
Did you? Because I am drawing a blank. Was it Navigant or was it BCG? I think it was Navigant that did a study. I'm almost certain it was Navigant. Did a study earlier this year, ranking where the leaders were in autonomy. Waymo was like mid 10, you know,
Which makes me wonder
or
what
lower.
they're talking about.
And Ford was number 1, and I think GM was number 2. Now, I was like, what the fool are you doing here? I mean, you know, how could you come up with this number? And yeah, it must have been Navigant, because I think I talked with Sam Bulsamid about it. And the strategy they had was based on monetization. What is likely to actually get out there? And the comment was, Waymo's great technology, but you can have the best technology in the world, but if you don't have a path towards marketing
you
your
got to sell it.
technology,
You got to be able to sell it.
it doesn't
right?
Yeah,
matter.
but see, but these guys, I mean, they're like, what, the second most valuable company in the world
They
right
can
now?
afford to lose money for a while.
Yeah, I mean,
you're
they,
saying.
I mean, they
Yeah.
know how to market stuff. This isn't a problem. And think about it this way: to go to the like to play off the VHS beta thing. Think about the fact that when the iPod came out, it was not the first such device, right?
Right.
No.
But it was the best such device.
Same with the iPhone. It wasn't the first
But
smartphone,
Beta,
just the
your
best.
Beta example is a great one. Beta came from a company that was the god of
Sony.
the consumer electronics world, and had more money than just about everybody combined. Nothing, until Beta came along and flopped, nothing Sony touched failed.
Right, but it was
It was a better technology, but it failed.
Yeah, it wasn't
Now,
really a
to
better
your
technology.
point, yeah, it was. Almost everybody I know,
shorter.
everybody I know in the business said it was. Your point about safety, that can be the difference. But if you're talking about Ford and GM, never mind maybe Aptiv or some of the others, if those guys wind up with the top rank system, Waymo could be sitting there going, guys, but we can do this just a little bit better. Yeah, but ours is doing just fine, and
Yeah. No,
we don't need you. And that's the problem. I think that they've got to be very, very careful that the rest of the world, everybody's buying up or merging or going in bed with one another. And I think everybody out there is saying, we got to be best, we got to do it, we can't wait, we can't drag our feet. And Waymo may wind up, much like Tesla, in a situation where they were great. There's all sorts of great things about Tesla. You look under the skin, they have an electronic architecture that's at least 5 to 10 years away from being broadly accepted in the business, but it may not matter because everybody else is going to come along with stuff, and they're going to be sitting there going, but what about us? And that may be the case with Waymo. I don't think it will be, but it could be.
My big curiosity is going to be how the safety of these cars is tested, right? When a Waymo car is available to the public, first thing everyone's going to know is, how safe is it? Is it safer than BMWs? Is it safer than Fords? Someone's going to have to find a way of testing it, right?
Exactly right. You're going to have a test procedure, because this is not just crashing it into a wall and saying,
This is,
hey,
does
it
it
passed
avoid the
test.
crash?
This
Yeah.
is not
Right.
crashing
School
into the
children.
wall.
Yeah, right.
This is IIHS running the damn thing, and the car goes, I'm not crashing.
Yeah, slam on the
Exactly,
brake.
because if these cars are on sale, most consumers and myself too, I'm going to want to be extremely certain that it's not going to crash and kill me while I'm in it.
Somebody came out with an algorithm. Was it Mobileye? Mobileye has developed a series of algorithms to test autonomous cars.
What?
And it gets all these equations. I have no idea how it works or the like. But yeah, they're able to test not the car necessarily, but the operating system. And put it in situations where they can tell, their algorithm will say, no, this isn't safe. Or conversely, no, this is very well done. It can handle the situation. And they're identifying different situations, driving situations that could be dangerous, and saying, we've got a system that can evaluate whether this is going to be safe or not. They came out with that, I don't know, in the last couple of months or so they announced
I
it.
want to know how they measure the trolley syndrome.
I don't know.
You know that, right?
Yeah. But if you have a test and your car a company's car failed, even a tiny little part of the test scenario, I don't know if it would sell at all. If you told me, yeah, the car aced the test, except it ran over some school kids in one test, but other than that, it was perfect.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't know if that would sell at all.
What sort of puzzles me is that, okay, all of us get into taxi cabs and Ubers and Lyfts and buses and
With no knowledge of the driver.
Exactly.
Or their abilities or the vehicle.
yeah.
And
you
as
know
we
what?
found out,
And-
some of them are pretty awful.
and some of them get in accidents, and some of them run over people, and some.
But
You know what I mean? It's
okay.
just like and
It's
we
what
just
you're
somehow
used
just
to.
like,
It's what you're used to. Planes don't crash. We all worry about them crashing. 40,000 people get killed in cars, and we get in one every single day, and we never think twice about it. So it's what you're used to.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's just like I was thinking about in your concept of can you drive through the field to the tailgate party, right? And I was thinking, so could an 86-year-old guy with cataracts do that?
No.
Probably not. Could a 16-year-old high school kid who's drunk do that?
But they might be really
Doing
good at that
donuts all
part.
the way,
Yeah.
right.
But I mean, so we give these people licenses, and they can't do it, right? But we don't
let it
think
happen
We don't
anyway.
think anything of it,
No,
right?
you're totally right. When I
'Cause
get
we
in a
grew up
taxi,
with
I don't know if the brakes work in the taxi or if the driver's been awake for 30 hours.
Right.
Or, so,
My wife was in a taxi accident.
really.
There you
Yeah,
go.
not a bad one, but she was in one.
But so we look at these cars and we think, oh my God, it's just going to be. And yet we allow people to drive who probably shouldn't.
Well, I think that's our goal, right? Is to stop those people who shouldn't be driving, and have them in a Waymo machine instead.
Yeah.
Look, I imagine when the first airplanes started flying, there's a lot of people said, I ain't never going up in one of them. No way in hell.
Yeah.
But as it became more and more common, and it was like, geez, you mean I can get across the country today?
There are still people
I'm
who
in
won't
it.
fly.
This week?
Yeah, right, this
exactly.
week. Right.
There are still people that won't fly.
Oh, I know. And there will be people who will never get in an
there are people who
autonomous,
believe
an
horses.
AV. There we go.
Right.
But I think once people start to see them and they're running around and they go, wow, yeah, it's okay. I think the adaptation will come very quick.
I think you're right. I think there will be a couple-year period where people are going to be watching very closely for safety.
Yeah.
And will set the industry back potentially by years.
Maybe, but we'll see. If
You get-
GM, if GM says, look, here's an autonomous car, I'd trust them. If Waymo said, here's our autonomous system, I would trust them right now today.
Because you trust that they wouldn't put that out there for you to use if it wasn't safe,
Correct.
if it wasn't ready.
Tesla, I would not trust.
If Joe's bumper and autonomy shop came and said, we got an autonomous system.
Yeah, I'd say,
Remember a year or
no
so
way.
ago, there was some guy who was claiming he had developed on his own a retrofit autonomous technology.
Yeah. In fact,
What is it, AI, that guy is, isn't he the guy who
Yeah, I
has
think
the,
that was it. And you just bolt it into your car, and then it drives.
George Holtz,
yeah,
maybe?
yeah, Hotz.
Yeah.
Holtz.
Hotz.
Yeah.
And well, look, Caterpillar just came out with a retrofit autonomous system for mining trucks. And to me, the most mind-blowing thing about it is the
Mind-blowing?
mind-blowing, right? Is their first application is for a Komatsu truck. So Cat and Komatsu, they hate each other's guts. I mean, they
That
just
was the
battle it
classic battle.
out.
Remember, there was Surround Caterpillar. That was Komatsu's plan, and they were going to crush
Right.
them into nothingness.
Right. So anyway, Cat just came out with a retrofit kit to make your mining truck fully autonomous.
guess
And the
that's
first application's a Komatsu truck.
The pros are drive slowly in a very limited space. Downsides are it's a big, scary vehicle.
Right. Okay,
Yeah.
got to get out of here. Let the crew go home.